Alrighty. Well, welcome. Before we start, I'm just gonna introduce myself. I'm Jhadira Villavicencio. And before we start, can you briefly introduce yourself and your current role, or your professional background?
I'm Janelle Mathies, and I currently am a stay-at-home mom, and I have been for, uh, let's see, 19 years. Before that, I worked for the American Heart Association in various leadership roles, and I did that for 5 years. So since then, I've worked a little bit, like as a substitute teacher, and that's pretty much it. So.
Yeah, perfect. Alrighty, wonderful, Janelle. So super nice to meet you. We'll start off with question one, some of the course takeaways. Um, So, looking back at this course in organizational communication, what are some of the four key takeaways or lessons that stood out to you from the readings or the discussions?
One of the key takeaways that I had was that anytime you're dealing with adaptive challenges and changes, it's important for a leader to possess confidence and to carry out things with confidence. You want somebody who's going to be good with communication skills and to be able to share their vision and to rally people when they're carrying out any sort of adaptive change within the organization. You also want a leader that's going to be humble. So those were the key takeaways for me within that first question was somebody who has good communication skills and also is humble and can admit if there's, if something didn't go well, that can take feedback. So that was the first key takeaway for me. The second key takeaway was that anytime you're going through an adaptive change, it's a huge undertaking, and you want to have an adaptive leader that is willing to ask questions and listen more than they speak. You want somebody who remains curious and is able to uh, again, listen, because that goes a long way in building a strong team. And of course, if you have a strong team, it's going to make a stronger leader, and it's going to make your project or your change even better. So that's my second takeaway. My third takeaway was that it kind of goes along with question two, was that the more comfortable that your team is to speak up, the stronger your team is going to be. So you want to have, and actually I'm looking at the, let's see here. It's psychological safety. So you want somebody who is vulnerable, a leader that's more vulnerable and is humble. So you want, that was along with question two. It's going to make for more of a safe environment with your team. And of course, we talked about last night, I think it was, that with psychological safety, the greater or if you reduce your relationship conflict and you increase your task conflict, the greater the psychological safety you have. So that was what I had for my third takeaway. And then my fourth takeaway was that passion is something that you really want to encourage and create an environment within your company where it encourages passion within your employees. It's not something that you're going to find from reading a self-help book. It's something that the longer employees work within your company, the greater their likelihood for passion within their work, finding passion within their work, like that they'll find it within their work. The more trial and error that they have within their job, the greater their likelihood for finding passion. The more that they're able to hone their skills, the greater likelihood they'll find passion within their work. The more that they're like that they're just able to like trial and error, and they're able to like fall into like place within their work assignment. The more that they're able to try different assignments within their job, the more likelihood they'll find passion. And the more that they're able to like rethink the work that they're doing, the more that they'll find passion. That was a key takeaway that I took from the course as well.
Wonderful, perfect. And then yeah, that those are some great ones there. What do you think from those four lessons is like the most important for practicing adaptive leadership in organizations today?
Well, I kind of went through and highlighted each one and talked about why they were important. So with the first one, I kind of talked about that a little bit, but with the confidence and humility, it's important because you want to have a leader that you believe in when you're carrying out such an important change within the organization. If you don't have confidence in your leader, and he or she is trying to create such a huge change within the organization, you're going to have a hard time selling that to all of your employees. Same with if you have a huge undertaking with an adaptive change and it doesn't go well. If you have a leader who has a hard time admitting that it failed or it didn't work out, you're going to have employees that are going to have a hard time following he or she. Whereas if the leader kind of admits that, it didn't go as planned, um, I think you'll have employees that are more receptive to recognizing that and recognizing that, hey, that's okay. People have things that don't go as planned all the time. So that was something that I felt with the first one. With the second one, the fact that um, you want a leader who asks questions and listens more than uh, speaks. Like the key point being listening. I think that anytime you're in an organization and you're going through a huge change, it's important to listen to your team and your employees so that you get a feel for what their thoughts are, so that you can recognize like what needs to change and the best way to go about that change. If you're not listening to people, then how do you know um, like the best way to do things? And they're the ones that are on the ground and doing things and know the systems best and have the best feel for what's going on and how to go about these changes. So you really need to listen and do more listening than speaking. Is what I feel when you're going about doing an adaptive change and as an adaptive leader. For the third one, psychological safety, that kind of goes back to number one and number two. Uh, the more you can show vulnerability as a leader, the better, in terms of creating a safe environment for your employees. As professor said last night, he had an experience where somebody said that they didn't bring up a change for 20 years because they didn't feel comfortable doing so, or an idea for a change for 20 years because they didn't feel comfortable doing so. And so, you certainly don't want to have that sort of an environment. So the more that you can create that dynamic and being a leader, carrying out change, and showing your vulnerability, it creates that sort of atmosphere for everybody to be able to share their opinions and give their feedback. And then for the fourth one, with passion. Uh, let's see what I thought. Just employees that are more passionate are going to be more committed to change. And so that's going to be more, it's going to make things more smooth and flow easier for you as a leader. And of course, you're only as good as your employees. So it will just roll up to you in an indirect way. So,
Wonderful, amazing, perfect. So, last question. So, can you describe a leadership or workplace situation where you could apply these lessons from the course?
yes. So I put together four things that I had for kind of takeaways. And let me see. Uh, one of them was acknowledging common ground. I have four tween children. And so when the kids get into trouble, rather than me, well, actually, thought it was a good idea to acknowledge and recognize that we are like, well, something that we like, whatever happened, it's something that shouldn't have been done, and we could kind of both agree on that and kind of frame things that way. And then go into, um, what do they think should be done about that? And that way it puts the responsibility back in their hands on what we should do moving forward. So acknowledging common ground with them. Another thing that I noticed was to stop asking the kids what they want to be when they grow up. Um, and that's something that like every adult does anytime they're interacting with kids. And it's so hard because like no kid knows at this age, like when they're 10, I feel like what they want to be. So I love that idea. And in the book, it talked about the idea of instead of what do you want to be, it's what do you want to do. And I thought that that was really important because it takes the pressure off of the kids to like turn into this person, and it like they instead of being the person, it's more of they have this life outside of the person. And it helps them realize that they don't have to be this person for like the rest of their lives. They can just, have this role for a period of time, and then they can always be something else or actually do something else, not be. And so that is something that was a takeaway and that I'm planning to do. The other thing was expressing the joy of being wrong. And I think that as a parent, I already do this, but I think it's so important for them to focus on the fact that people are wrong all the time and that it's not a big deal. And that if you're wrong, admit that you're wrong, say you're sorry, and then like move on from it and recognize that people make mistakes. So that was something. And then I don't know what happened to my other one. So, so we'll just go with those three.
Alrighty, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Janelle, for meeting with me. It was great to hear all the different takeaways that you had from this course. And yeah, I've really had a great time talking to you.
So let's flip over to you, Jhadira. Let me ask you, or what are four important things that took as takeaways from the course?
Yeah, so if I had to boil down this whole course into some four key takeaways, I would probably start off with the first one being that organizational communication is essentially emotional. It's not just informational. I would say that Carnegie makes it really clear that criticism and blame usually create resistance, not cooperation. So if I want people to actually hear me, I have to protect like the dignity, lead with respect, empathy, and I would say sincere appreciation. In the workplace, people aren't just reacting to what you say, they're truly reacting to what it implies about them. So that's what I would definitely start off with the first one. When I think about the second key takeaway that I took away, I would go over to like Grant's idea of thinking again, and a leader is a leadership skill. So this course really pushed the difference between the blind arrogance versus the confident humility. And what stood out to me is that confident humility is basically saying, I'm capable, but I'm also open to being wrong. That matters because the world changes super fast, always. And leaders who cling to being right, and like saying like, oh, this is how we've always done it, they typically end up using old solutions to brand new problems where that solution is not going to end up working. When I think about the third um, key takeaway, is going to be listening is not necessarily possessive, it's influence. So when I think about like Grant's idea of the right kind of listening, like motivational interviewing specifically, reframed leadership for me. Truly, it's not about convincing people by talking more, or being like the loudest in the room. It's about open ended questions, reflecting back about what you're hearing, affirming what really matters to them, and summarizing kind of like what we did in our last project, so people can actually clarify what their own thinking is. And I know Carnegie backs that up too, when he says things like people respond when they feel genuinely heard and valued. And then I would say my fourth biggest takeaway would be, adaptive progress needs productive disagreement. So Grant, I know he talks about generating task conflicts, so disagreement about ideas while limiting relationship conflict, making it personal. And he explains that by why confrontational approaches typically backfire, because once people feel attacked, they truly just stop listening and they just start defending, because it's really like tied to their identity. So if I want to really help with real change and transform real change, I need a culture where people can challenge ideas without damaging any relationships.
Those were great takeaways. So can you explain how you feel that those ideas are important to adaptive change, adaptive leadership?
Yeah, of course. So, they're important because adaptive leadership is not about giving people the answer. It's about mobilizing people through uncertainty, learning, and change. And communication is basically the tool that makes all of that possible. We're in an ever changing world. So, like, Carnegie's lessons matter because adaptive change is extremely uncomfortable at the end of the day. People feel threatened, people feel judged, they feel blamed easily, and that creates a lot of resistance when trying to accomplish change. When communication protects dignity, it keeps people engaged instead of shutting them down. When I think about Grant's rethinking and confident humility, matters because adaptive challenges don't come with a perfect playbook. If leaders can't rethink, they double down on whatever worked in the past. Even if it no longer fits reality. Like I said, you hear that phrase, oh, well, this is how we have always done it, when in the world, it's always ever changing. So that solution really just won't work nowadays. And then when I think about my third one about the right kind of listening, that matters because people support change more when they feel heard and when they feel like they have some ownership. Listening builds trust and it helps people surface what they're really worried about, which is usually the real barrier to change. And then lastly, when I'm thinking about task conflict without relationship conflict, so that matters because adaptive solutions require multiple perspectives. If everyone agrees, it can be a group think, like we talked about in class. But if disagreements becomes personal, then collaboration breaks down right away. Adaptive leaders have to create a space where people can challenge assumptions without it turning into any kind of fight. So overall, I would say that these four lessons are extremely important because adaptive leadership requires you to hold tension, emotions, uncertainty, competing values, and keep people in the work long enough to learn and move forward.
Thank you for sharing those points. That was excellent. And can you apply how those adaptive leadership, or how you are going to apply those adaptive leadership things to your workplace?
Definitely. So, kind of with our background talk about trying to get everything together, I've been traveling for work, obviously. I just started this new job. I'm now an HR corporate recruiter, but I heavily am doing a lot of HR tasks right now for this company. It's a startup, started up back in 2022, and it's a big landscaping company. So this big landscaping company basically buys different like smaller locations in different states, and then we help like build infrastructure, we help putting in all the safety compliance stuff, giving them new tools, basically giving each one of our different places more resources to so that way they're under our name and they're following our safety rules and everything. A lot of these are very small mom and pop shops of landscaping companies in different areas. So we just had, and now I can say it because it's like public knowledge now, we have just bought a new location in Tennessee. So that's actually where I've been traveling a lot. Before, and the contract had just been signed to buy this location, this smaller company. It was just signed on last Friday. So I actually first went out to go visit a like 4 days before the contract was signed. So I couldn't tell when I was out there, I couldn't tell any of the employees who I was, or like I was just kind of there to help specifically with I-9s. I just came back now because we were doing a whole other orientation, kind of like answering questions. So sorry, that was my long backstory as to where I'm going with this. So kind of just using all of that, my backstory. So I had to correct last week when I went. I had to correct a lot of missing information on all of these employees' I-9s at a site where all of these. I am not going to say all of these because it's the majority of these employees primarily speak Spanish. I want to say there was 2 out of like 70 employees that actually spoke English. Most of them just spoke Spanish. Luckily, I do speak Spanish. I'm not gonna say I'm the best in any case scenario, but I do my best when I'm out there and trying to translate and help with HR tasks. So we had a layer of uncertainty because the team couldn't fully, like my HR team, I went with one other recruiter, so we couldn't fully explain the bigger business context as to why we were there or who we were. We're just these 2 strangers coming and asking questions about I-9s and their IDs and making them bring in their socials and all that. So employees could easily feel nervous, suspicious, embarrassed. And that's an adaptive challenge because it's about trust and emotion and not just paperwork. So here's how I would, long story short, to just tell you how I would apply these lessons. So first of all, with Carnegie and protecting dignity, with something like an I-9. So I'm so sorry, I didn't even ask you. Do you know what an I-9 is? So an I-9 is basically like where you put in all your information, like your name, yours, and then you do know. Okay, so sorry. Okay, good. Yeah. So for those viewers who don't know, in case there are viewers that don't know, basically you have to put in your name and your you either give a passport or like two forms of identification, one with a photo, so like a driver's license, and like your social or your birth certificate. So that's what a 99 is. So with something like a 99, people can feel judged or scared. So the tone matters. I'd lead with reassurance and respect. Hey, we're here to help you, correct your information, not to get you in trouble. That's the big thing I was making sure people were understanding. And I'd thank them for coming in and cooperating with us. It definitely helped reduce fear and defensiveness immediately. I also started off really kind of like as soon, so they had all of our the employees kind of like line up outside, and then one would come in one by one until we were like kind of like this garage space area. And the first thing that they would come in, because I'm a new face. The guy, like the other guy, other recruiter I was with, new face. So the first thing I would do is like, hi, my name is Jhadira Villavicencio. I'm just here to help correct some of the forms that we have on file. What is your name? So making sure that I was kind of like building trust there, shaking their hand, knowing that yes, I was corporate, but like, I didn't want to make it feel like I was corporate, like I wanted to make sure they knew my name. I could speak Spanish. What is your name? And then explain the situation as to what's going on. So that way some like trust is being built there. And then when I think about my second takeaway, so focusing on Grant's teachings of confident humility and rethinking. In that situation, you don't assume you know what employees are thinking. You have to stay open. If someone seems resistant, instead of labeling it as like being non-compliant, I'd rethink it completely and ask, are they confused? Are they worried? Did they misunderstand what I said? My translation could have been completely wrong from what I thought I was saying to what, because I was speaking in Spanish, so for what I think I'm saying, maybe they heard it wrong or didn't understand my accent. So the mindset just really kept me patient and kept me very flexible as well. So yeah, and then when I'm thinking about like my third key concept about the right kind of listening. So I ask open questions and listen before correcting. So what questions do you have? What part feels unclear? Do you want me to explain why this form is used for? Then I would reflect and summarize so that they felt safe. I used a lot of what we were taught, especially in our last assignment, by like reflecting, summarizing after they spoke, to make sure that I understood what they were saying and also that they felt safe, especially across all these language barriers, my accent, their accent. And that turns into really a supportive process, not a confrontation. And then I would say fourth, so my fourth key takeaway with task conflict, not relationship conflict, and avoid like confrontational approaches, I believe it's like adversarial. Oh my god, I always say that word wrong. Adversarial approaches. If an employee pushes back, I keep it focused on the task. So let's figure out what's missing and how we can fix it together. I don't argue and I don't escalate. I keep it calm, very collaborative, because if they feel attacked, trust completely disappears. And especially in this time where they don't know who I am and I'm not really allowed to say who I am yet, I need to try and build some kind of trust, especially when we're going over such legal documents. And then if it's not built, then everything just gets extremely harder at the end of the day. So for me, the course really shows that even a compliance task like I-9s, corrections, is really an adaptive leadership moment. It's about trust, it's about dignity, it's about listening and creating that safety so people can truly participate in a stressful change without having fear, and with building some kind of trust with strangers that they don't know. And it was nice because taking that approach was so crucial, because now that they found out on Monday, so like this week on Monday, that they are officially a new company, that they've been bought out, and that now they'll have like a corporate headquarters in Chicago, and like everything has to be by the book and everything. So they were scared, of course they were scared, but I was the first one to be able to come back and talk to them through this new transition, and they were like, hey, you were that girl from last week who like I laughed with, who like shook my hand, and I had a whole room of 72 people just like laughing, and we were just joking and like, hey, what questions do you have for me? Nobody's getting their like job taken away. If anything, this is going to be really good for the company. You guys are all getting new uniforms, like state of the art like shoes, like everything is going to be good. Now you have PTO, like what questions do you guys have for me? And so they were so much more open to be able to come up to me and ask me questions about benefits, about what's going to be changing, all of these things. I think just having that initial mindset of my four key takeaways, like I'm really glad I was able to have, basically what I'm saying is I'm really glad I had this class because I was able to take those four concepts and really apply them to something that's very crucial to people that a lot of the times they're not seen in society, I would say, because there's not people that can represent them or even speak their language. So to have me and to for me to even have the opportunity to be able to be that person and kind of like mend that bridge was amazing. So yeah, being able to really put those teachings in play this week and last week really helped out not just me but like them at the end of the day.
That's great. Yeah, I really like that. That's awesome.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and that was great feedback to hear. So, um, yeah, thank you.